Hello, welcome to the CarCast+Edmunds podcast. I'm Matt, the moderator, DeAndrea, here with Alistair Weaver. Hello.
Hello, Matt. Hello, everybody.
Today's a special day. The embargo has actually been lifted on the Corvette ZR1,
After
despite
the
what we
world's
told you
worst
now last week.
after the world's worst introduction last week, today we can genuinely talk about the ZR1, which is a huge amount of fun.
And we've got a little bit of a track video. You driving it. Where were you at COTA?
Yeah, Circuit of the Americas in Texas, which is I think the way we described it in the piece is it's a lot of car and a lot of circuit.
Yeah. All right. Well, there's some exciting things to talk about with that car. Not to bury the lead, but it's good. We all kind of expected it would be good. We'll find out how good it is. Before we get started, Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. Baseball season is in full swing, and we're into NBA and NHL playoffs. And Bet Online has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news and scores, even live in-game betting while the games are being played. With the largest selection of odds on everything from the MLB, NBA, NHL, and UFC, BetOnline remains the best online source for all your sports wagering info. In between the games, head on over to the BetOnline casino for all their top Vegas-style games, including poker and their live casino. BetOnline, the game starts here. Okay, so ZR1. I mean, we expected good things. The Z06 was already nuts as it is. Sounded amazing. It was fast. It winds out. It just had like all of the best of American muscle and a bit of that European supercar flavor. And now we're trying to top that, right?
That's right. I think the Z06, I'll tell you what, the only bit the Z06 doesn't, the Z06 is still superior on is that, whenever you put turbos on an engine, you do kind of change the acoustics a little
Yeah.
bit, and the Z06, that naturally aspirated V8 still sounds, for me anyway, still sounds superior. But in pretty much every other way, I mean, I kind of flew to Texas thinking, I think I'm going to conclude that the Z06 is the one to have. Like in the 911 range, you can have the GT3 RS or the GT2, but actually a normal GT3 is kind of the sweet spot, particularly for road and track. And I thought I was going to conclude actually you want the Z06 because this is just too much car. The Z06 sounds incredible and blah, blah, blah. And I got to the end of the day and I thought, God, I want a ZR1 really bad. And I don't want to like give the game away in the video, but we're probably going to end up giving it away anyway. And there's always been this long-term thing about can Corvette seduce people out of Porsches, Lamborghinis, Ferraris, McLarens, all that sort of thing. And the general feeling has always been no, it's a very distinct audience base. And, I've always seen myself as a natural kind of, in a dreamland, a GT3 type owner. And then I got out of this ZR1 and I thought, I really want one of these. And I hope there are enough people that are just willing to kind of like, don't worry about brand, think about the car itself, because this is a hell of a piece of kit. I mean, we were very fortunate. It was a great couple of days. We were in the Circuit of the Americas, which is a massive circuit. I think it's 3.5 miles long, built for Formula One. So it's big and wide open, but super technical. Lots of elevation changes, lots of corners that flow into each other. So it's quite a lot to get. It wasn't my first visit there, thank goodness. There's a lot to get your head around. But as a circuit to show off that car, nothing better, which is why they chose it, of course. And the first thing we did, they sent us out in C8s, standard Stingrays. Off you go. Did a bit of lead follow, one of their pro drivers who knew the circuit really well, just to kind of get our eye in. But it was also kind of interesting to jump from the Stingray, which, let's face it, is not a slow car, into a ZR1. And we did it in stages. So we went from C8 Stingray into ZR1 without the track pack, the ZTK pack, and then ultimately into the track pack car. And so that progression was super interesting. The Stingray suddenly feels not slow, but feels a bit soft. Then you get into the non-track pack, say ZR1, and you just instantly feel how hard it's hitting. And then you get into track pack, and there's a big leap between the standard ZR1 and the track pack ZR1.
Okay.
Which is different springs, different retuned all the damping, but also goes on Michelin Pilot Cup 2R tires, which, if you're not a massive geek like me, basically means they are refugees from the racing world. They're almost like hand-cut slicks. We've experienced them on a lot of supercars now, and also things like we had them on the GT500. If it is dry and hot, they are mega. They had some Michelin test engineers on the event with us to answer questions and also to oversee the process. They reckoned it was 3 seconds a lap faster around that circuit. Once you're absolutely dialed in and going for lap times, they reckon it was 3 seconds a lap faster on these tires with the changes in suspension. And it felt it. The turning was faster, was more stable. The only problem then with these tires is if it rains or it's cold, you're going to be faster in an Equinox because they're awful.
Yeah.
And they wear out really quickly. They had a whole truck full of Michelins. I mean, like a big articulated truck full of Michelins. So every time we went out, almost like, oh yeah, now you're going out for a session in the track park. I was like, oh, it was like Formula One. Here's your fresh rubber. It was, it was very privileged in that respect. And we got quite a lot of track time, and we got track time on our own. Just doing a bunch of laps. And because the circuit's so big, you almost lose a sense of speed. And then you look down, it's, oh my God, I'm doing 150. And at the end of the straightaway, there is a long straight that starts a little bit downhill, then levels out. And if you watch your Formula One, it's where Verstappen and Lando Norris clashed last year. As I hit the brakes, we'd seen the telemetry, we were doing 177.
Yeah, I saw that.
And
in
that's
your video, and the video on the page.
Yeah.
And on the Edmunds YouTube channel.
177.
And got there just in a blink of an eye. It happened quick.
Yes.
And you guys got to watch the video because you get to see Alistair try to narrate while all of this is happening. You did a great job doing it. But I don't know how many laps you got into it, but I don't know. It seemed like you must have gotten a lap before you had to narrate the lap because the car is just nuts.
Well, that's the big problem with these events, particularly if you're doing video. And this is kind of like giving you a bit of behind the scenes. Because normally what happens is, like, you've not driven this car before, clearly. You're there on the launch. They whack all the cameras on. So now if all the cameras are on, then you've got to, like, hit apexes and stuff. Otherwise, it looks like you're a numpty. And then they're like, oh, we'll stick the microphone on to get some reactions. And you're like, okay, I haven't even driven this thing. It's 1,100 horsepower, 1,064 horsepower, massive Formula One circuit that I haven't driven for 6 years. And now you want me to talk at the same time. And I actually said to Casey Gooder's movie, he's terrific, the producer, and we agreed that I'd do some lead follow just to kind of get my eye in and think about what I was going to say, and then we'd put the mics. But yeah, it's still pretty early in the process, and you have to be really careful that you don't start concentrating on your lines at the same time as you're trying to, brake from 177 miles an hour into a 90-degree left. And I guess I've done it for a long time now, so you keep a little bit of mental capacity left. But it's a lot. And I said to the guy, if you watch the video, it's very easy, and you're the same, Matt, to be self-critical on these things. I watch it back, it's like, I kind of repeated that word, or I could have expressed that better. And then I was kind of like, give yourself a break time. I was like, yeah, I was doing 150 miles an hour at the time and trying to trail brake into a corner. So yeah, it's quite guttural.
Yeah,
you just have to
that
kind of
part I wouldn't overthink it, because look at the expression on your face. Plus, I always love, you want to use the open face helmet that you're using so we can see you and see you talk and understand what you're saying. But nobody looks good with an open face helmet on.
Well, it also like squashes your face a little bit. So I don't know, I can simulate that, but like when you talk a little bit, like your face is a bit squished in.
Yeah,
and then
so you're trying to talk and pronunciate words, and you're right, the face is squished. And the best is Leno as well, because Leno's a sweet guy, but when he had his chubby cheeks, he was just so pushed into his helmet on the show, and he's trying to do it. I've been there too, like just trying to do it. And you're right, it's tough to to even narrate anything while you're trying to drive a car that you definitely don't want to wreck.
And there's a lot of adrenaline. Genuinely, this is like I'm doing 177 miles an hour. It's like 155 into corner one, which is, off the famous start where they start in racing and they shoot up the hill and do a 90 left and everybody crashes. That's 155 into there. So it's a lot. It's a lot of car. I mean, I say in the video that it's certainly on those tires, it is much more of a race car experience than a fast road car experience. There's very little body roll. Carbon fiber brakes really stop. You've got proper aero. There's the fast right-hander down the back. It's like a four. There's almost like four corners in one, and you pretty much apply one steering lock, and then you just manage to throw. But then you get proper downforce. It's a race car. I mean, I haven't driven it on the road yet. That's the big caveat. I don't expect it to be terrible because it's got that whole Magna suspension stuff, and every other vet is pretty good. But you need a big circuit. You need something like the circuit in Americas to really enjoy this thing.
Right. But of course, keep in mind that what you're talking about is the car and driving the car. We're not talking about like the collectability and stuff because that's a different topic. So maybe you don't need the track pack version and the slicks and the aero, but probably most buyers are getting it because they feel like that's going to be the best collectability or resale value for it. And by the way, you brought up an interesting point earlier. It's like you got GT3, GT3 RS, they trade for big money, already in the aftermarket. And one of the things that was kind of a deal point, like, do you buy a cool ZR1? Do you buy a Z06 or do you buy a Porsche? And people go, well, the Porsche is going to hold its value more. But take a look at prices of previous ZR1 and Z06s and where they're going for. They're kind of there now. If they hold, then you're no longer really have to, as far as collectability, I don't think you always have to choose between, like Porsche or a Corvette and go, Corvette's going to lose all of its money. It's not really happening now.
And the other thing is like the last generation ZR1 wasn't a great car. It was interesting. I had dinner with Josh Holder, who's the chief engineer on the Corvette, and he's worked on several generations. Absolutely lovely guy. And he was telling me, I think the C7, the last one, was supposed to be mid-engine because GM went bankrupt in 2008, and a lot of projects either got cancelled or massively scaled back. So they always knew that car was, that was way too much engine for that chassis and setup. And, this is the mid-engine car. It's a very different proposition. This is a way, way better car. This is a really properly engineered, it's fantastic. And I was surprised. Yeah, I thought it would be good. I thought it'd be fun. I was surprised how good.
Yeah,
it was. It's great, and it needs to be because it's a funny thing. It's like it's 200 grand. So we should talk about like how you spec it because that was a big debate as well.
I was gonna ask is why don't you walk through the different packages first?
So you start off with what they call the standard car, which is 175. So what you get there, you don't get the aero pack, so you don't get that kind of big rear wing. What you've got is something that actually looks quite discreet. Where you really tell the ZR1 against like a Stingray is you've given up the frunk at the front for a bunch of intercoolers and some aero. But you still keep, I should say, as an aside, you still keep the big trunk. So I can't think of another, maybe apart from a 911 that's got this much kind of everyday versatility about it. So that's really good. So you start off at 175 without the big aero package and with a much more kind of streamlined look and with standard suspension and Michelin 4S tires, which are a good fast road tire.
Trying to find
that is also the car that gives you the 233 mile an hour top speed. So GM and Mark Royce, the president, went out. They did this record run, 233 miles an hour. Now, as soon as you put the downforce, the big wings on it, you lose the top speed. And I said to the engineers, like, what do you think then with a big wing on? What speed are you doing? They're like 220 something. So
Yeah.
if you're boasting to your mates down the pub that your car will do 233 and you have the big wing, you're lying. It doesn't. It does 220 something. So bear that in mind. If you want to do 233, don't get the big rear wing because aerodynamic downforce also brings drag. So where were we?
Yeah. Or get the big wing and take it off when you want to go 233. Every time you want to go 233, just take the big wing.
Take the wing off. And I said, have you not thought about like a GT3 style thing where you can adjust just the rear wing? And they were like, no, it's a terrible idea because you basically you upset all the aerodynamics and create a really difficult, create an imbalanced car. So anyway, 175 buys you that car, which maybe the odd person will buy because it's a bit of a sleeper. But realistically, everybody is going to put the aero package on it, which is $8,500. That's the big carbon fiber wing, and there's other bits and pieces. And then if you want to put the track suspension package on it, that's another $1,500. So it's 10 grand all in. You can have the aero pack without the track suspension. And like talking to the engineers there, and again, we didn't drive them both on the road. They were like, if you're never going to go to track or you're going to go to track once or twice a year, this is probably the best compromise. Sensible, fast road tires, probably a little bit more compliance in the setup. Those things actually more compliant than the Z06. The springs are softer. So start there. If you're going to use it as a track car or if you just want to tick all the boxes, then go down the ZTK. So we're now up to like 185-ish. Then you're going to need things like the nose lift kit so that you don't scrape the chin on your driveway. That's $2,500. The sort of nicer trim inside, that's 3LT or something. So you start to creep up. But I spec'd one out as I would want it, which is track pack, is aero, and it came to like $204,000 as it leaves the dealership, which, if you compare it with how much you can spec up Porsches, that felt very reasonable. The option prices are not stupid.
Yeah.
But if you want to go up from there, you can add carbon fiber wheels, which save a bunch of unsprung mass, but they're 15 grand, 13 grand. You can have more carbon fiber inside, which is purely aesthetic. So you can keep going, and you could get it up to, if you want to tick every box, you're up to about 230-ish.
Okay.
Which is a lot of money, and a lot of money for a Corvette, but still cheaper than a GT3 or anything else that you can think of. And if you think into pure performance terms, something like a Rebelto, the Lamborghini, which is hybrid and has 1,000 horsepower, that's 600 grand. The Ferraris are that money now. So it is still, if a 200k car can be a bargain, this is it. And I think the spec I would want, I could live without the carbon wheels. I think it'd be like just over 200 grand. And probably you want to spend that to protect your investment.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm curious, can you get the fully equipped track pack or whatever, and do what I did on the Mustang, is just go back to a more sane tire? And does that screw everything up? Does that screw up all the drivability and everything, or is it doable?
I asked that question because even if you live in California, there are days that are cold, there are days that are wet, and it basically means you can't, you're going to have to potter down the road on your fancy, and also you just wear them out. So yes, you could just get the 4S's or something, put them on the car. The engineers are saying, yeah, you're going to mess up, there's certain calibrations which is set for the tire, things like ABS, some of the stability and blah, blah, blah. So you will slightly compromise it, but like we are talking like,
when you're fully using that stuff,
when you're absolutely on the limit in the Whole Foods car park, then you're going to feel the difference.
Right.
So the reality is, yes, I think for me, unless the only thing I'm interested in when we get it finally on the road, and especially around here where I live, is the ZTK pack too stiff? Like, is it just become a bit uncomfortable?
That's the question. And like, how is it calibrated? Is it going to be too rough of a ride, or because does it have different settings even between the track?
Yeah, and you've also got this lot of MagnaRide suspension system, which we know, GM's not the only people to use it, Audi and others, but it really does a really good compromise on things like the standard Stingray. So I don't think it's going to be terrible. And the other thing I should say about all the electronics is you've got a lot of settings to play with around traction control because this thing is traction limited. I think 0 to 60 and quarter mile are going to be not that strong comparatively speaking because it's all traction limited. So they've done a really good job of calibrating that stuff. So we were running most of the time in sport, like a sport track mode, which gives you some slip but gives you some stability. And there was a lot of nervousness on this event about, you know, you're putting a bunch of people, you're handing over a massive circuit, you're handing over a 230-mile-an-hour car, and off you go, boys. It is not just boys and girls. It's a lot. But yeah, there's a lot to keep you safe. It was funny actually. We were there. There was like a fairly small group of journalists that were there, and GM was very tight on like who'd driven these things before and what was your track experience and blah blah blah. And then there was a whole bunch of influencers riding there Friday. I was like, oh, they're all driving the cars. Well, I was like, no. They're being driven.
Yeah. I mean, and that makes sense. I mean,
And
you don't want to damage the cars, but you don't want to have anybody get hurt either. So
no. And our fellow podcast host, Joe Rogan, turned up as well while I was there.
Oh, he did. Yeah.
Yeah. He said he loved CarCast. Big fan.
I'm sure that's what he said.
I didn't actually speed. He was shuffled away at the end of the pit lane. He wasn't brought to the likes of me.
I'm sure he was asking though.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he was.
Where's Alistair?
Yeah.
It was like, he's on the track. He's talking and driving. It's his specialty.
Yes.
Talking and driving. All right. So the verdict is you're all in. You're going to sell the kids and get the ZR1.
Yeah, I'm not by instinct, I'm not somebody who likes like, particularly on the road who wants to make like a massive statement with your bright yellow car with your like, ridiculous wing. That's why I think like even the GT3 RS, the 911 is a bit silly now. I'm not naturally that guy, but then I got out of it and I thought, then I start specking it. Oh, maybe you could have it in this dark color, just downplays it a little bit. Yeah, it's a ton of money. And I mean, going back to like the Z06 thing, the ZR1 is incredible just for the sheer indulgence of the performance. It's the torque actually more. I mean, it's got 68 pounds-feet of torque. So it's more about the torque once you're up to speed than the ultimate power in a way. And the turbo lag they're doing a great job with that as well. So it's just these instantaneous kind of, wall of shove everywhere you want it. I mean, the reality is the Z06 is best part of 100 grand less. Well, 50 starts at 50 grand less. And, that's way more car than you ever really need on the road and is an amazing on the track. But
did they talk about how they're dealing with turbo lag? You said they've overcome the issue. Is it some sort of like sequential turbo system, some kind of inline thing? Does one kind of go before the other, or they were just able to dial it in as far as we know, just programming and.
So I'm not as well versed in this as you, and I don't want to get this wrong, but I was told all about it. I don't want to get this wrong by reciting. But essentially, my understanding is they're using the electronics to keep the thing spinning. So even off throttle, you are not. So it's not like the old days where you just came off throttle and then you kind of like go back on throttle, wait 5 seconds, and something happens. Yeah. So basically, they're using the electronics to keep it spinning. So even when you're off throttle, the turbo's ready and willing. So you don't start at zero boost. So you still have a cascade up to, I think it's peaking about 24 psi, which is a lot.
Wow. It's a lot.
But you don't start at zero. So you are, and obviously the other thing the car's always doing is working out what mode you're in, how you're driving. If you're on a track, it can tell. And the things are getting so clever. Like the gearbox, you could tell was like getting its eye in. I didn't bother with the paddles. You're sort of driving it on the automatic. So there's a lot of technology a lot of electronics going into keeping the turbo spooling. So as you do go back onto the throttle, it kind of knows what you're about to do, and then it's already giving you the benefits.
And now I also read in your write-up that you only get the 1,064 horsepower on 93 octane. If you're in California on 91, you suffer with around 1,000 horsepower. You'd have to suck it up.
That's right, because I think it was the Demon, wasn't it? Which, you had to be on kind of like, pretty much neat ethanol or whatever it was to make the 1,000 horsepower. This is just California, I suppose, mainly California specific, isn't it? With the 91 problem. Yeah, I mean, you can use octane booster, but they were saying that you're not going to get around 1,000 on 91, and you need the 93 to get up to 1064.
Again, we're getting punished here in California. Only a
It's
thousand
just rubbish.
horsepower. Yeah, got to run some octane booster in there.
Yeah. You can probably afford a bit of that's what the guy goes, yeah, you can probably afford a bit of octane booster, if you've spent
If you could get it,
30
just get it
grand on
by the
it.
case, put it in a can each time
And,
you go
and there
out.
was a lot of me saying about, the only other thing on this, it's a track car, really. And it's such a if you're going to really track it, just the cost associated with that, you're going to do tires.
Yeah.
You've got carbon brakes, which you're gonna. It's not like they don't wear out. You're
Yeah.
gonna
I mean, you'll need
smash
brake pads for sure.
fuel and just it's amazing car on a track. But when you look at the infrastructure that GM put together to have us there, there's like 20 Michelin people like keep moving tires around and checking cars and polishing this and prepping that. I think that's always the thing. Oh yeah, track day. Like driving to track day, I did, and it's like yeah, but I don't know.
Yeah. Curious, what was the temp out there?
Like bloody hot.
Because it's one of the things that came up before in previous generations was people were buying the hot Corvettes and going massive heat soak, superchargers aren't working, cooling systems aren't working. And I was wondering if they picked COTA, the end of May, almost June, to kind of prove a point, to go, we're going to put you in Texas in basically summer and show that this thing is pretty consistent around the track again and again and again.
I I am asked. I suspect not. My rationale would be they just said, "Oh my God, this is a hell of a lot of car. Are we really going to let these people drive it? Where can we go that feels like the most open and safest place to do that?" And then you're looking really at like a proper, FAA Formula One standard track. And,
Yeah.
like this around, they did 911. I did 911 GT3, and that was at Road Atlanta. And then Road Atlanta is still kind of a little bit old school. Laguna Seca, yeah, that probably would have also worked, but it's hairy in places. Circuit of the Americas, unbelievably fast in places, but it's, the safety standards and everything else. There's quite a lot of runoff. I suppose that,
Could
but it
have
was,
done it at Thermal,
yeah,
Palm
yeah, but that's
Springs.
tight. That's like a go-kart track. I did a Lamborghini thing there. It just felt a bit
Yeah.
small. The other, the other,
But it's pretty flat, no elevation changes. So it's
yeah,
like,
Co-
it's, you know, um,
Coat. So, but to answer your question,
yeah.
it was hot as hell.
Yeah.
100 and best part of 100 degrees. I mean, the Texans were saying this isn't humid. I was like, this is really humid where I come from. So it wasn't quite like Singapore where you step out, you step out and you're dripping in sweat, but it was super humid, for me anyway, super hot. Yeah, the heat soak from the cars, you stop and then the thing's just like running for 10 minutes. And there's so much cooling on this car and a lot of aero. It's not, there's obviously the whole front end is now intercooler and that's designed not only to cool everything, but also to fire the air basically out through, like Ferrari style, out through the nose, up over the top of the car, and then either under or over the rear wing. And then you've also got additional cooling for the rear brakes and a bunch of other stuff too. So they put a lot of effort into trying to keep this
Yeah.
thing cool.
Engine cooling, oil cooling, diff cooling, brake cooling, just everything they can.
Yeah, and they were saying turbo cooling actually. We were doing like 8 lap runs and then we were doing 8 laps, something like that, and then doing an in-lap cooling it down. And the bit that they were talking about was actually turbos. It's the turbos that get hot.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Makes sense. Let's talk about the interior. There's a couple things happening.
Yeah,
Old
so
and new.
it's really weird. So they've obviously decided for whatever reason that we're going to have to launch it in the 25 model year. People have waited long enough. So the car, as we drove it, had got the original C8 interior, which is that one with that big waterfall of buttons down the center console, which is ergonomically disastrous, but I always kind of thought was a bit charming. But anyway, for next year, and we talked about this show a couple of weeks ago, all of that is gone. And they had examples of the new interior there so we could kind of poke around it. So what you're going to end up with is the first, they didn't tell us how many, but not more than low hundreds. ZR1s will have the old interior, and then everything will transition to new interior, which is much nicer. Quite a bunch of buttons are now on the touch screen, which might be a bit of a pain, but just the quality and feel of it has gone up a notch. So the nicer interior is the new one, but the
Yeah.
collectible one will be the old one simply because there were less. And I think, God, I
You
don't
get the
don't suit.
choice if you made an order and you're one of the first, let's say, couple hundred that can get a 25. Do you get to choose to stay in the 25 or move to the 26?
I
I don't,
reckon. Well, I suspect you'll be able to move your order back. You'll not be able to bring it forwards.
right, right.
I
If you
don't,
were
but I
selected to
mean,
have a 25, you can go, I don't want that. You know, I want a 26.
I'll swap with somebody else. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would have. Yeah. So anyway, this is so apparently there's a couple of colors, and don't sue me if I've got this wrong, but I think there's like a grey green color which won't continue. So if you spec the right color with the old interior, you're going to have greater exclusivity. The other thing I should mention is you can have this as a coupe or a convertible.
Yeah.
And apparently, again, like talking to the guys there, the convertible is £100 heavier, and obviously some of that weight's going to be fairly high up in the car. But apart from that, they're saying actually the roof isn't really load bearing on this Corvette because it was always designed to be both, and it's a Targa
And it's
anyway.
removable. So yeah, you
Yeah,
said
so
it's
it's
a
not
Targa.
really like structurally much different. I would have the coupe because I'm a bit of a purist.
Yeah, but also it's a Targa anyway, so
It's a Targa anyway.
you could still take it off and
Yeah,
get some skin cancer if you want.
yeah,
Whatever your
exactly.
goals are.
Let people shout at you.
Yeah.
But I would very much like one. I thought it was a very nice thing. I thought it was very
Yeah.
cool, actually. You
Okay.
might have gathered
So
that from the excitable video, and
you guys should watch the video. It's great to see uh Alistair doing his best, which you're so good at, being on the track and driving and talking and getting a little loose, maybe here or
shall
there.
shall I tell you that this morning I put it was like because he went live at 7 a.m. this morning. We were recording this on Friday, and I said, "Oh, kids, like let's get up. Oh, do you want to see like Dada on TV?" Oh, yeah, yeah. So anyway, I put it on. I pop up, big cheer as like Daddy's on TV. We go like it's like 177 mile an hour braking, hit the apex, and then my 6-year-old turns around and goes, "Dada, does this car have a TV?" I said, no, no. Oh. And then that was it. They just talked to each other and later, when are we putting Peppa Pig on?
Yeah. They're like,
It's
when
like,
do we get back to the Cadillac EV?
yeah, it's a good lesson in know your audience.
Right.
And even my 3-year-old went to school today and we were in a Macan EV and he said, no TV. He said, I like the car with Peppa Pig. Yeah.
Listen, he
That's
knows
it.
what he wants.
Doesn't want 1,000 horsepower. Peppa Pig appears in the back seat. Happy days.
That's it. He knows what he wants. You got to admire that.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. Okay, so a couple more things. I was watching some of the U-Drag videos, and I saw you guys take the BMW i5 all electric 5 Series against the Dodge Daytona EV, but the Scat Pack, that's the faster one.
Yeah.
And you guys went head to head with this. And this was interesting to me because the i5 is not meant to be a performance model, like compared to M Sport or any of the M cars. But it's still a BMW, right? And
It's still the M. The one we had, to be fair, is the M60, so it's kind of been breathed on by M. So it's not a M car. You get those sort of, you get it across the range, like
Yeah.
the X3 M40. Is that where it's a bit M, but not like a proper M?
right. Going up against the Dodge Charger that is meant to be, at the time, the future of muscle car. So you'd expect it to be to be quick, to handle, to have some of the attributes from the previous versions of a Dodge Charger or a Challenger. I mean, if you even think a little bit about what Ford tried to do with the Mach E, they said, hey, if it's going to call it a Mustang and it's an electric SUV, it needs to have some Mustang characteristics. Now, it needs to be a little bit of at least the performance variants need to perform. They need to be able to handle. They need to be quicker than the other versions and whatnot. So you expect the Charger to be the epitome of electric muscle car. But I watched your U-Drags video, and I can't say it was quite as dominant as I thought it was intended to be. I don't know if I was even expecting it to be that good, but uh, anyway,
No, I mean, firstly, that i5 is a really good car.
yeah,
And the M60 is, is monstrously quick. It's a lovely road car just because you got tons of, we had this as part of our 1 year ownership fleet. It's got almost 600 horsepower. It weighs a lot, 5,233 pounds, just looking at the data here. But the Dodge is so heavy, it's almost 6,000 pounds. So actually, although the Dodge had got a little bit more power to weight was basically the same. And when we set up the U-Drags concept, that's a big thing that we're looking at is we've generally tested them on the track. So it's like, what's the quarter mile? What's the quarter mile look like? And what's the power to weight look like? And these two are super evenly matched, and so it proved. It was interesting. We were trying to work out the Dodge, again, not giving the game away, but the Dodge seems to come back at the end of the straight and on the return run, and we think that perhaps the BMW hit a speed limiter, which is why it kind of then didn't keep pulling. But yeah, the Dodge. So the Dodge. So as you'll see in this film, and we saw in another U-Drags that we did, there's a problem on the car that we had with the braking, that it was basically, although it's got ABS, it's locking up a brake and really pitching the car as soon as you get onto heavy braking.
mm-hmm.
So right on the threshold of ABS. So that was a bit leery. But then, so that was in the Edmunds U-Drags, but now subsequently we're living with this car, and in the last couple of weeks we've had a problem with what should we call unintended acceleration. So Brent on the team was driving it, lives over near Fresno, and suddenly realized that this thing was accelerating, and he was off every control, and he was adding about a mile an hour a second, and his son was in the car and filmed the whole thing, and his son did an amazing job of filming what was going on. And Brent said, like, I hit the brakes and I managed to stop the car. But if I then let go of the brakes again, it was just accelerating of its own accord. So we published this piece this morning, and we've shared it with Dodge, but it's just like, what's going on? And Brent stopped the car, turned everything off, reset it, started again, and we haven't replicated the problem. But we can see in the forums that other customers, and they haven't sold that many of these so far,
Yeah.
but other customers who bought them have had the same issue. So it's a known problem, and now we're just working with Dodge to find out what the solution is, whether it's be a software update, whether it's something a bit more fundamental. I mean, Brent said he wasn't sort of terrified because this thing it's not like it was suddenly applying full throttle, but everything's drive-by-wire these days, so it's not like you can just slam on the handbrake, or you can just put it, he pulled over and put it into park, and it went into park. But,
Yeah.
pushing the P button is electronics. It's not, you're not engaging a gear as such, and you're not pulling on a cable to engage a handbrake. So when these things start to go wrong, there's this kind of like fear factor of, is everything else going to work?
Yeah, and I know they do their best to put in some fail safes in there, going like, listen, when you press park, that doesn't mean just put it in park. That means override everything else that's going on so you can put it in park. It gives it, like, in layman's terms, it gives it sort of admin controls by going, park is important. Or if it has to automatically set an e-brake, like if you open the door and you're in drive, it should put it in park or set the e-brake. That's it's these days now it's typically programmed in the code going, that's kind of an admin control. That's like a superpower in the programming going, that should override everything. Like, and I've even done it like in my truck, in my F-150 Lightning. Like I was in drive and then I open a door to get out and the shifter physically moves into the park position. Right. And I just forgot, you know,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
I just opened the door before I put it in park with my hand on the shifter because I was going to put it in park. I just did one before the other and it does it for you. So yeah, this is an interesting issue. And
It's an interesting.
an
Yes.
interesting issue. Now, potentially, yes, very dangerous, especially if it accelerated like rapidly, like if it just
Yeah.
floored itself and just it went crazy. Um,
I
uh,
mean, to be fair and to be clear, none of that really happened. And I spoke to Brent about it, and he said, look, I didn't really feel in danger. He's continued to drive the vehicle, but it's clearly suboptimal. It shouldn't be
yeah.
happening. It opens the door to, is it what else is going on?
When you make the call, let's say to the manufacturer, in this case, you call Stellantis and go, we've had an issue with the car, one that we purchased. We're going to write about it. I'm curious if they give any feedback or even ask permission if they, I don't know if they need it to go, are you willing to give us the VIN number? We'd like to pull some data on the car. Can we find out what's going on? They could probably do it anyway, but is there any discussion like that going? We'd love to even see the car. Can we plug the car into something? Like what's
Yeah, I mean, obviously, some of this is a bit confidential, Matt, because we have very good conversations that remain behind closed doors. But yeah, the long and short of it is, we always take the view that our job is not to like belittle a manufacturer or rubbish a car or anything else. Our job is basically to tell consumers what's the best, to advise, not tell, that's the wrong word, advise consumers what we, what based on our testing are the best vehicles available for them. And then where we can work with the industry to make vehicles better. So where we have data like this, we will generally share it with Dodge and Stellantis, so that because at the end of the day it's about can they come up with a fix which is just better for consumers. So that's how we approach it. So we're pretty open with this stuff. If there's been a problem like this, we'll work with them and say, how what we've experienced. I'll give you an example. We're on one of the Edmunds U-Drags. We had that challenge in the braking. We had a V-Box system running on the car that we used for all the data, and we
yeah.
shared the data with them because it's in our interest and everybody's
Yeah.
interest to improve the product. And it's also funny, like a lot of manufacturers do swaps between vehicles and they share notes and things like that. It's not as, it's a bit more kind of mutually beneficial, shall we say, than you might think. That what we won't do though, and what we're always, that's not the same thing as saying, okay, don't run the piece or don't tell people that this is happening.
Yeah.
That's a very different conversation.
No, but it'd
We're
be
an
fair
independent body.
if they come back and go, we figured out what the issue is. There's going to be a software update or whatever. You guys would follow up and go, we had an issue. Dodge responded. There's a fix. We're good to go.
Yeah, well, I guess the stage before that would be, yeah, as soon as something becomes available, we test it. So there's a follow-up piece that says we had this situation at it, we've been advised that it relates to X or Y, errant piece of software code, whatever
Yeah.
it may be. An over-the-air update came, and then it's like, we have now lived with this vehicle for X amount of time, or we've done 1,000 miles, and we have no evidence of this problem reemerging.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
of the stuff you can outright test. We didn't have stability control. Now we got stability control. Great. We can go and test that.
Yeah.
If it's something like this, which is a problem that frankly we can't replicate, then it's more about, okay, in the last 1,000 miles, it hasn't really hedged. But we'll always, because ultimately, like, it's the same point, right? As a consumer, you bought this car, you read this article, oh, don't fancy this much, then the software update. So make sure you're up to version 1.234, done. And then we'll work with, we'll also have continue that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, and it makes sense to do that, to give the feedback, and hopefully it amounts to something. That was a big thing with what was the Chevy? Was it the Blazer? The
Oh, the Blazer EV was the case in point, yeah.
yeah,
Where, we were not wholly responsible, but at least partly responsible for the stop sale because we'd bought one and had all these problems. And again, we had high level meet. I don't think this is speaking out of turn on, but breaking a confidence to say that we met with people. Those conversations are confidential, but yeah, we share our experience because ultimately, we are a big team of experienced people, and we have hopefully we have an expertise that we can share and is beneficial. So, and the other weird thing is, we drive everything. And the really thing about being a manufacturer is you do your best to drive competitive products, and you swap vehicles and you rent vehicles and you do X and Y. But in the media, we have far better access to vehicles than the manufacturers do.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I had a press car, and it was just one of these situations where I don't know, somebody stopped hard in front of me. The car I was driving stopped on its own. It had the automatic braking thing, which is always very violent because it waits to the last minute, and
Yeah.
which I understand. And then when the car in front of me accelerated, went away, and I went to move forward, the car I was driving was in reverse, and I moved backward and almost hit the person behind me. And I was like, what was that? And I thought about it and I was like, did I hit something? Did I hit like the shifter? Like what happened? And that just wasn't the case. And I continued to drive the car, and there was no issues. And when I gave it back, I said, just as a note here, this thing went itself in reverse. Here's the situation. And I got a nice letter back from them going, we're going to pull it from the press fleet. We're going to take it all apart. We're going to see what's going to happen. And we're done with that car. I was like, all
Yeah.
right. And I was absolutely confident they would fix the issue. It didn't even make sense for me to like make a whole thing out of it and turn it into a massive thing. But because again, I didn't have someone next to me filming it. So
Yeah.
it just is what it is. It's
That's the
hearsay
problem now.
in
Everybody's
my
got a
part.
camera.
But there's not a camera. I don't know. Uh, yeah, somebody else said that to me the other day. We're fostering a dog, and I said, the dog likes us now. It sits on my lap. It's adorable. And Tammy goes, you didn't get a picture. It didn't happen. I was like, all right. So the dog's not adorable. It's fine.
Yeah, I find it hard to believe. But,
Yeah. This dog. All right. Well, listen, are we missing anything else? What's next? What's next on the docket?
oh, what's next?
You're not off to Spain or
No, what's
Africa?
next? Actually, we've just supercharged. Again, we can talk about this next week. I was thinking about like what we can talk about, what we can't after my shambles last week. Yeah, we've just we run a supercharger on our Mustang,
On your
so
dark horse.
on the dark horse. So it sounds like we're just doing performance cars, which is entirely not true. We've got a lot of very sensible things going on as well. We talked about the RAV4 last week, but yeah, we are doing something with our Mustang. So
Have
looking
you
forward
done
to
it
driving
yet?
that
Have you
one.
gotten it back?
Yes, but I haven't driven it yet.
You got
It's
to drive
done.
it. You got to drive it.
Got to drive it.
Got to
800
drive it.
horsepower.
Oop, dropped a pen. Okay. All right. Yeah. So we'll look forward to that. I'm sure you guys are going to be excited about taking that out to U-Drags now and start going after everything you can.
Yeah, it's all about traction. Same with the ZR1. We were like working out, can the ZR1 top our leaderboard? Will it beat the Lucid Sapphire? I think it's going to be really close.
I mean,
It's all about it's all about how it gets off the line because it's two-wheel drive.
yeah, I'd
And the
be
Michelin
more,
guys, what really made
more
me laugh, I
interested in
talked to the engineers,
seeing.
like, oh yeah, we all watch. I was like, oh, we do this thing. I was wearing the t-shirt, everybody like heard of it. Oh yeah, we all watch it. So there's a big debate about it. It's obviously like gamed it. And the Michelin guys were giving me advice about how to, on the cup to our tires, like you want them warm, but not hot. So
Yeah.
like there was all this debate, like you want to warm them up, but you don't want to do like a full on drag racer style, burnout. You want to get them warm, not too hot. It's like, you know, it's like Formula One, like qualifying laps, isn't it? You got to be in the right operating temperature. So
I think in that car, looking at the U-Drags leaderboard, you're really kind of chasing after the McLaren, the
the 675
765 and the
LT.
720. I
Yeah,
think,
I mean, the rolling thing on the way back is the thing is with the vet where it really picks up steam is the quarter mile. You know, by the time you get up to the quarter mile, then you are on full, you know, you're no longer traction limited.
yeah,
So then you've got a brake, which will be mega under brakes. Then it's going to turn. And then are you going to be traction limited coming out of the corner? Maybe a little bit. So, but then it's just got I mean, it's got 868 horsepower. There's a lot. And obviously it weighs a lot less than the EVs. The EVs are so heavy.
yeah.
But that Lucid is so fast.
So Chevy
McLaren's
though
too,
is claiming, looking at your leaderboard, they're claiming like a 9.8 quarter
but
mile,
with
but that's with a
rollout,
rollout,
with
right?
rollout. So that takes you into the low tens.
Yeah.
So
So it's right
yeah,
around the two McLarens potentially.
yeah. So but then it'll be faster on. It's got more top end on the cut on the way back and more torque to get you out the corner because the McLarens are great, but they haven't got a lot of torque. So it's cool though. We come back to what we were saying. We're now talking about like a 200 grand ZR1, saying, well, yeah, it's definitely going to meet the McLaren 675 LT, which I think was 700 grand in the spec that we had. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's a hell of a lot of money to spend on a car, but a bit of a bargain in that respect. And you could use it every day.
I'm gonna lay my prediction down. I'm gonna say it's gonna slot right in between the Tesla Plaid and it's gonna take over the fourth spot. It's gonna go
Uh,
right in
uh,
here
I
above the
think you're being,
McLarens.
as you're looking at it, 29.33. Is it going to be 3 tenths faster than the McLaren's? I think it's going to be more than that. I think it's going to be the first guy. I think it has a chance if it because it's a grippy surface. I think it has a chance of beating the Lucid. Okay, to be
Okay.
continued.
Yeah, to be continued. You guys gotta go buy one. Good luck.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Don't
all
think I've got
right.
that budget.
I'm just saying, if you would have skipped the Fisker, you probably could have got yourself
Sold the
closer,
Fisker.
that
Just
much
sold.
closer to
I've
the,
just sold the Fisker.
yeah. That would you sold it and just about covered the installation of the supercharger on the Dark Horse, probably.
No, it didn't. Oh no, cover the installation, yes,
Yes,
but
the
not the
installation.
supercharger plus the installation.
Not both, just the installation.
Yes, it didn't quite cover the supercharge. Anyway, let's move on.
Okay. We're wrapping up for today anyway.
Please
So
do.
I gotta head out to Total Wine and give away some Bravago in the
You got
store.
you spent you wasted 50 minutes before you got your plug in.
I did. So you gotta wait to the end of the show. If you listen to the
Yeah.
whole show, then you got my plug for the
I'm
for the
wearing my
hotel.
Edmunds U-Drags hoodie, available on YouTube.
I saw you in the video you're wearing the U-Drag shirt.
Yeah,
And
go to
I realized,
Edmund, go to at Weaver on Cars for all my latest things. Go, how many plugs do we want to get in? But yes, go to the merch. We have a merch store on YouTube.
there's nothing wrong with a couple plugs.
No, I like a plug.
I got to get myself one of the U-Drags t-shirts. I'm going to go buy
Okay,
myself one of those.
I'm happy to give you. I'll swap you for Bravago. See what we did there? That's like an
Yeah,
influencer.
there you
I'll
go.
swap you a U-Drags t-shirt for Creator Bravago. There you go.
You got it. Got it done.
Bad
All
deal
right,
for the
guys, have a
two.
good weekend. Or I presumably you already had a good weekend by the time you're listening to this. So have a good week. Until next time, keep the air in the spare and the bag in the wheel.